Every single day, the applications we use constantly bombard us with progress bars, bursting notifications, and cascading checkmarks. In consumer tech, daily active user retention relies almost entirely on these highly visible mechanics. To keep you logging in, they build streaks, assign points, and rank you on leaderboards. But there is a well-documented psychological conflict here. In 1971, psychologist Edward Deci identified the overjustification effect. His research proved that introducing external rewards to an activity actively undermines a person's internal, intrinsic drive to do it. When designing an application for deep emotional practice, these standard progress bars risk shifting focus away from the actual relationship and toward the metric itself. If you optimize your behavior just to keep a UI streak alive, you convert the genuine act of relational care into a meaningless transactional chore. This research suggests that for a psychological tool to remain effective, the user's attention needs to be shielded from these standard performance metrics. This is the exact counter-approach taken by the relational wellness application DunbarrioSolo. They hide the metrics entirely. They rely on a framework defined by researcher Sebastian Deturting in 2011 as Gameful design. Instead of bolting on external point systems, Gameful design utilizes deep structural affordances to naturally support user motivation. This schematic shows the application's core architecture designed to execute that concept. It is a 14-node invisible progression machine shaped like an organic skill tree, with branches eventually converging at a central graduation point. This entire skill tree is completely untrackable by the user, but fully traceable by the underlying system. As you write entries and connect with people, background edge function evaluations silently track your journey through this complex path. This architecture effectively tracks and honors your behavioral growth without ever exposing a progress bar for you to obsess over. Let's look at how the system evaluates you from day one. It starts here at a single origin node called rooted. Rooted is the baseline state. The application begins mapping your specific behavioral patterns from this starting point. But if there are no points, no leaderboards, and no percentage bars, how do you actually know you are making progress? Look at this interface panel. The system issues warm, untrackable milestone events, replacing standard notifications. These take the form of Sora 2 animated narrative videos. They feature companion mascots like Kiko the Ambassador, who acknowledge the user's specific practice. These narrative moments serve as acknowledgments of growth, providing emotional validation without triggering optimization loops. The architecture splits into two parallel tracks. The first is the inward depth branch. This track is driven entirely by solo reflection. You move through a sequential progression, beginning at reflecting, moving to weaving, and reaching save for weave. The system is strict about how it gates progression on this path. Generating an AI summary of your journal entries isn't enough. You must actively read and interact with the synthesized patterns to advance to the next node. The inward depth branch acts as a psychological safeguard, ensuring you have established a genuine internal reflective habit before you attempt to navigate external relationships. The second track, the outward structure branch, requires external, relational action rather than private journaling. The sequential nodes here map your external actions: gathering, tending, practicing, inviting, and eventually, mutual. Advancing through these stages requires empirical proof that a real-world relational practice has actually begun. You cannot progress by simply clicking through menus. The specific mechanism evaluating this practice is the ledger, shown here. It explicitly logs app sessions, writing streaks, and out-of-app connection events like calls or visits. By tracking these invisible acts of care, it provides an empirical mirror of your social energy allocation. This guarantees that downstream mutuality features remain securely locked until the system can verify sustained outward relational effort over time. Even beyond those hidden 14 progression nodes, there is a deeper layer of silent telemetry running beneath the tree, tracking your psychological state. The system includes a 15th node, called writing depth. Writing depth tracks the quality of your engagement without surfacing any visible milestones. It operates completely hidden in the dark. There is also a 16th hidden node called Energize, which the application uses specifically to gate access to experimental feature toggles. All of this data is securely and quietly processed via edge functions, with ever touching the user interface. The application knows exactly how deeply you are engaging, but it deliberately shields you from the scorecard to preserve the purity of the practice. If we look back at the full schematic, the invisible machine routes you toward a singular apex point. This vertical line of light represents circling, a strict architectural boundary. Reaching it requires mastering both the inward reflection and outward structure branches. The system makes a precise distinction here. Achieving the mutual node simply means another person showed up to the platform. But reaching circling proves you have done the deep psychological work on both the internal and external tracks. This structural bottleneck guarantees that a user cannot progress until they demonstrate true, balanced relational literacy. When a relationship hits the maturity of the graduation boundary, the structure of the application shifts. Graduation is not an automatic feature transition triggered by a line of code. Crossing that threshold requires a collectively voted transition by the members of your specific circle. This draws directly from self-determination theory. Requiring a conscious choice to advance fosters autonomy and relatedness, increasing your intrinsic motivation. Once that vote passes, the user graduates from their private solo practice into a state of shared communal governance. This new state introduces rotating coordinator and link roles. These allow users to passively benefit from the compounding presence of their community, even when their own practice is quiet. By hiding metrics and requiring a communal vote, the transition is driven by earned maturity rather than a gamified race.